As of today, which is December 6th, we've sold $81,000 worth of food on this 1/3 acre plot of land. And I'm actually pretty frustrated with that result, and I'll go into that in a minute here. But I wanted to share a few lessons I've learned surrounding growing food and some of the things that you come across when you grow that much on a really small scale. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Zach Buckle. I own this farm, and this is our 4th season growing vegetables in Cody, Wyoming, Zone 4B, 5A, depending on how you look at it. And we try to harvest and sell fresh vegetables 12 months a year. I say try because there are times where we can't, and there's problems with selling and growing in the winter, which I'll kind of go into. But I'm frustrated with that result because I wanted to have more production this year than we actually got. And the bottom line is the reason I was hoping to be at over 100,000 by now, because I believe it's possible to do that. But the reality of growing food and growing a business is it never looks like it does in your head, or your vision never turns out exactly like it does in your head. And that goes for growing a garden, growing a homestead, or starting a farm. All three of those things, no matter how you want to grow food, the vision in your head is probably not going to be the reality right away. At least it's probably going to take longer in reality to turn into your vision than you think it is. And just for some perspective, our farm, it's our 4th season. The first 3 seasons, we probably did like somewhere between 40 and 50,000 in sales. So I really can't complain. It's a huge increase in success for us. And I am ultimately really happy with the result. But I'm still human, and I lack patience sometimes, and I'm still learning to fall in love with the journey of growing food and starting a business. And some of the perspective I want to share with you today is something that I don't think you're going to hear on a lot of other gardening channels or farming channels. At least I've watched a lot of YouTube videos on this, and I have not seen anybody really talk about the nitty-gritty behind-the-scenes stuff. And that's what I want to get into a little bit today. In order to get to the goal that I had in my head back in March, the crops that I plant need to produce close to 100% success rate. And it's pretty unrealistic given the age of this farm to get there, and I have my delusional tendencies, and I'm just a very optimistic person. So I always think that it's going to be easier than it really is. And, the reality of growing food in any scale, not just a farm, but like a garden or a homestead, anything like that, you're going to have problems. And I think it's important to zoom out when you have those problems. And I'm half the reason I'm making this video is for me to look back at, because I need the reminder. I have soul-crushing moments here by myself mostly when I look at these kinds of problems, and I know what they mean in terms of my business and stuff. And I need to remind myself that I need to zoom out and just remind myself that this is just part of the journey, because ultimately that's the truth. For example, I have a big vole problem right now, and we have thousands of dollars of carrots in the ground for the winter. And my plan has been the last couple of years, we've slowly but surely increased our production on that. and we've had the best success of growing winter carrots this year. Almost every bed is like off the charts yields. I could just tell from the first 2 beds we've harvested, and we still have 5 more in the ground, but there should be about 900 to 1,000 pounds of carrots left in the ground. And voles like to eat carrots. Although the weird thing is I'm finding they haven't been eating much of them yet. They like parsley roots more than carrots, which is really weird. But I was afraid that they were going to just devastate the carrots because I've heard that they're really bad. This is the first year I've ever had vole problems. And so I have this wave of anxiety because my business depends on those carrots in a lot of ways for the next month or 2. Because they're really sweet. Everybody wants to buy them now. Nobody has fresh carrots at this time of year. We're in December, by the way. And so I have a lot of anxiety around that, but I got to remind myself that this is kind of what I signed up for. You know, being a grower of food means that these things are going to happen. And ultimately, I don't have control. You know, I can do a whole bunch of little things to try and control it. There is some solutions I'll probably have to look into long term, like putting in plastic around the greenhouses, but that's really painful. It's digging trenches all around the greenhouses, putting a piece of plastic to stop the voles from coming in. And I could put mouse traps around, but it's sort of a reminder that, you know, you could sow as many seeds as you want, and you could start beautiful no-dig gardens, no-till gardens, kind of like I talk about a lot on this channel. But ultimately, to be successful growing food, you have to let go and remember that God's the one in charge, not you. And because there's so many factors that are out of your control with growing food, no matter what scale you're at. And it's important to detach from the outcome when you try to grow something. And like I said, I'm really telling myself this because I have so emotionally invested in a lot of it. You know, especially when there's money involved. But even if you're just growing crops for your family, you know, the first couple years, you're going to have some trouble probably. You know, you're going to have... you probably don't want to try and grow 100% of your own food your first year. It's probably not a good idea. You know, you gotta build some experience and kind of weather a couple of these big situations because they're going to happen. And, you know, they teach me, another example is just weeds taking over. You know, we do a whole bunch of cultivating and weed management on this farm. We spend hours a week cultivating, but we still have weed problems. Grass still grows underneath greenhouses, and yes, there's a solution to it, but it's pretty tough to make it happen like that, you know. They just exist. The problems just exist, and you just have to go with the flow, no matter how you're growing. So it's important when you start this journey of growing food that you fall in love with the journey itself, because it's going to be a journey no matter what stage you're at. And I've recently, I can't say I've mastered that. I honestly cannot say I've mastered it, but I feel like I'm getting closer to falling in love with the journey itself, instead of seeing those kinds of problems as just my life is over. Because it used to be that way for me. I felt like, oh, I'm going to go out of business. You know, these kinds of things, especially when you have like 3 of them in one day or 1 week. And I honestly have quite a few of them right now. Voles, weeds, mice are a huge problem for me right now. And it's like you feel like you've solved those problems in the past, and then they just come back again and again. And so it's important to detach from the outcome of the results and just enjoy the process of learning. It's a big lesson that I've just recently started to come around to. And I can't say I've mastered it, if I'm being brutally honest, because I still get really frustrated, and I swear in private and yell and just have temper tantrums, you know, because it's pretty stressful when you have a lot of money riding on these situations, and especially when you have employees and all that. But when you can get in that zone of just zooming out and going with the flow, it becomes a lot more pleasant, and you're probably going to get to the result you want a lot faster than throwing temper tantrums and stuff. And so to overcome those kinds of problems, I find the way that I can keep going is my why. Why am I doing this? I come back to that. And recently I've been deeply thinking about it, because since starting the farm, I've started this YouTube channel, which I'm so grateful for any of you who are still watching this video right now. I am unbelievably grateful for your attention, because connecting with people like you is why I do this. And it's the same reason that I love growing the food too. I love connecting with people who actually appreciate high quality, nutrient dense food. And believe it or not, it's actually pretty rare around here in Cody, Wyoming. There's not many, but the ones that are, I genuinely can't even put it into words how much I appreciate it. But because it's rare for me to find people who are interested in this kind of agriculture where I live. There's just not many people very interested in it. So connecting with you guys has been a game changer for me. I just talked to somebody today, and I hope you're watching. I don't remember your name, but from Spain, who's growing a garden or starting a farm like this in Spain. That is so amazing to connect with you, because I'm so curious what this is like in your climate in Spain. I'm fascinated with people growing food in different contexts than me, because I'm pretty much, there's only one other guy around here doing this, and I talk to him all the time. So he's the one guy I know who's I can relate to for the most part. But it's so fun to connect with you guys, whether you're doing a garden or a farm or a homestead all over the world. It's so fun to me, and it's why I'm doing this. And so ultimately, what I believe my purpose is with this farm and this YouTube channel is to inspire more people to grow food. The business side of this, while I do have some moments of enjoyment, it's really stressful. That $81,000, it's not really what brings me joy. That's not even much money at all in terms of a business, okay? Because I'm not going to pay myself at all. And I'm going to make another video about that nitty gritty of my numbers later on in a couple weeks, once I know the final numbers for 2024. But it's not even that much money. It's not like that's bragging at all. The reason I'm sharing those numbers is actually because that equates to huge yields on a small space. That's the whole point of me sharing that number with you. But that's not what brings me joy. The point is, I want to inspire you watching to grow your own food, because this is the shortest growing season in America. And I think it's shorter than a lot of Canada too, at least on the coasts. And so if we can accomplish this here in a climate that has basically 120 to 90 frost-free days a year, which is very short if you know anything about growing seasons, and gets, anywhere from -10 to -30 degrees Fahrenheit every winter, and trying to harvest fresh year-round. My goal with doing that and sharing it with you on this YouTube channel is to inspire you to grow in your climate, because it's probably going to be easier for you, at least if you're in a northern climate. I can't speak much about any zones larger than zone 6, so I think it changes quite a bit once you go south. But I want to inspire you watching to do this at home, because I don't think many people in America do stuff like leave kale out this long. We just finished harvesting this kale 2 weeks ago. That's a food source. that you could do in many different climates. And like I said, it's probably going to be easier for you in most climates than me. It's done now, but that's really why I'm doing this farm and the YouTube channel, is to inspire other people to grow. And, selling the vegetables also is, I want to provide health to people, because I know what people say to me when they actually eat this food on a regular basis. You could see the glowing energy in their eyes when they tell me this is the best carrot I've ever tasted, stuff like that. That's what keeps me going through the dark times. So for you watching, you want to find that motivation for yourself, probably before you start sowing a seed. And maybe it's feeding your family. Maybe it's pushing the envelope and just kind of seeing what you can produce in your backyard. That's a huge motivation for me as well. For me, I'm a geek about this, so I love every part of it. It's not just about food sustainability for me. I love just seeing how far I could push the envelope in terms of producing nutrition in a super duper cold climate. And part of the reason that motivates me is because everybody around here says you can't grow a garden. Not many people take gardening seriously in this climate. And I think that there's an overall attitude in at least America that just gardening is this hobby thing that you do. You don't really use it to grow food. It's just kind of like you get some raised beds, steel raised beds, throw a couple of tomato plants in once a year, and then it's a conversation piece more than anything else. And the point of this channel and video is to show you ways where it's so much more than that. And it can actually put food on the table for you in a very sustainable way that doesn't cost you a lot of money to maintain every year and actually saves you money on your grocery bill, guaranteed. My perspective as a market grower is I'm constantly thinking about yields and numbers. I know what yield I should be getting on this very bed of kale because of the amount of plants that I have. And the more experience I have in my context, the more accurate my projections of those yields will be. So that's how I can tell you, if you plant X amount of kale plants at this spacing in your no-dig garden at home, you will get this result. A lot of guys out there on YouTube are not talking about that part. And if you actually want to put food on the table, you need to know that stuff. And that's how I'm so confident that it's possible for you. If you live in Chicago, if you live in New York, if you live in Denver, a lot of really urban areas, you could do this kind of stuff. You don't need to live in the middle of nowhere like I do. That's the other point of this channel, is high yields, small space. The kind of yields I'm talking about, $81,000 on a third of an acre. It's hard to equate that in terms of like pounds of food, because it depends on a lot of factors and the crops and stuff, but that's a huge amount on a small space. If you took that same proportion and put it in 200 to 300 square feet in your backyard, it's $1,200, $2,000 of food a year that you don't have to spend at the grocery store. There's a lot of food you could grow right in your backyard if you just learn a little bit of these principles that I'm talking about. And just remember that when you have problems like the ones I'm talking about, just zoom out and remember it's all part of the journey, and keep growing, because those problems are going to happen. And, if you had a rough season this year and you've had huge, devastating aphids or grass take over your bed, or thistle that you've pulled 8 times and it still regrows, I just want you to know you're not alone. I have been there. It is soul crushing. You have to feel that pain, but you don't want to let it linger and ruin your life. And if you think about it too much, it can. And I've been there too. I've let it really get me down before. But if you can let those feelings pass through you and just keep moving, that's a big mindset shift that's going to really increase your success. Because if you just get demoralized and quit, then you lose. You know, that's how you lose the game. You don't want to lose the game. You want to keep playing. You want to keep growing. And you can't let those kinds of things get you down. And I think that doing the true no-dig style with cardboard and 6 inches of compost and 6 inches of wood chips really solves a lot of the problems. But you're still going to have problems. So again, if you're watching this, I genuinely appreciate it. I cannot put into words how much it means to me to connect with people who actually care about growing food all over the world. It's just incredible. This is a little bit of a new style of video for me, so if you do like this kind of video, please let me know in the comments. And if you had any problems this year, you had any rough situations, let us know in the comments. I think it'd be really helpful for people to see that if they had aphids destroy a crop, that they're not alone. Because a lot of the internet is a highlight reel. It's just, and I'm guilty of this too. I try to only show the sexy stuff, but there's a lot of ugly stuff around here that is a huge headache. And if you're serious about growing food, I want you to know that those headaches happen to everybody. It's not pros, homesteaders, gardeners, they all have those headaches. So you're not alone if you have had grass take over a bed, aphids destroy things, voles eat a whole bed of carrots, deer eat, my first year, deer basically ate this whole field. I've been there. But when you have those successful crops, you have to celebrate those just as much. I still remember what it was like to harvest the very first successful bed of carrots for me. Because I had never really grown carrots successfully until a couple years ago, to be honest. And that first crop was just pulling those out of the ground. I still get the same feeling every time. That's one of my favorite things to harvest and grow is carrots. That keeps me going. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you liked it, let me know in the comments. Let me know what kind of obstacles you had to overcome this year or didn't overcome. Let's get a conversation going, and I will see you in the next video.